Do you know that we're close to graduating? Like, we're closer to graduating
Then when we started.
Mm-hmm.
It is upsetting. It is upsetting. I don't like it. I don't like the thought of it.
I don't either, because then what do you do after you graduate? You go to more school, so you don't have to...
Yeah, so you don't have to do work.
Don't have to get a job.
But you'll have to have a job to pay for that school, but it's like, who cares? So I'm going to tell you a story.
A story?
Remember earlier this week?
Oh, you've been waiting for this.
I've been waiting a long time to tell you this story because I wanted to get your reaction on the podcast.
I'm very scared. Is it like ha-ha like reaction, or is it like your dumb reaction?
Yeah, it's a ha-ha reaction. It should be. At least that's what I'm hoping.
Okay.
For. So, as you know, I went home for like one day to switch cars because my parents are moving.
Mm-hmm.
So they needed my big old 2002 white Honda Odyssey to move up to where they're going. And I spent the afternoon/evening with them, and then one of the things that they did was go to a friend's house to pick up some cookies because their friend bakes cookies.
Ooh.
And really delicious cookies, like the best cookies I've ever had. And I'm sitting in the car because like I don't know them that well.
Mm-hmm.
It's fine. They're going in, they're gonna talk, they're gonna have fun, they're gonna get cookies. And I'm sitting in the car and I'm just on my phone, just playing a game on my phone. And I just hear, and I just turn my head to the left, and there's a duck walking down the sidewalk at a leisurely pace.
Uh-huh.
And I just watched, and he looked at me, and I looked at him, and he just kept walking. And he just walked away. Like it was the most blasé encounter I've ever had with an animal. Cause he was so like, yeah, this is my sidewalk. I can walk here. You can't tell me no.
Yeah, don't worry about me.
No,
like I got
fine.
this.
Yeah. And he's walking, he just walked on by, and then he disappeared. Literally could not see him.
Whoa.
I turned around once he passed like my line of sight.
Mm-hmm.
I like tried to turn around and find him, and he was gone. And he
was a ghost duck.
That was my first thought. It's like, did I see the ghost of a duck like walking by? Because it was so out of place and random, and it was just like I didn't see him coming.
Mm-hmm.
Granted, I wasn't looking up and looking around for ducks, specifically of the ghost kind.
I didn't see him coming. What? Okay.
I didn't see it coming. Well, come on. And then he just appears. And then he looks at me, and I didn't say a word during this entire encounter, and I just looked over. And he looked at me. There was very much a moment of like, we both know the other person has the ability to scare us. It's not a one-way street. Either of us could scare the other very easily, might I add.
You should have done it. You should have just banged on the window.
No, because I was afraid of him.
It's a duck.
It was a scary duck.
Okay, when you say duck, I think of geese instead. I imagine a big white thing.
That's more like what it was.
Oh, okay.
It might have been some kind of goose.
Oh, okay.
But it was like this weird amalgamation because it was big. It wasn't tiny.
Oh, okay.
It was bigger.
I imagine a tiny one.
Yeah, it was like swan sized, and but it had like the face of a duck. You know how like a goose has a different looking beak?
Yeah.
It looked like a duck from the face part. And I was like, I don't know what you are, but you could kill me.
Oh my god. We have a mutated ghost duck.
That's what we got. And then that was it. That was I immediately was like, I have to tell you about my ghost duck. And so I texted you one word, and it was duck. And that was it.
No, it wasn't.
Yes, that's what it was. I was like, duck, and you were like, what? And I was like, you'll find out.
You got everyone's hopes up. Everyone who's listening to this, including me, got their hopes up, and then you said you saw a duck walking.
I thought it was an interesting story.
It's interesting. It's not ha-ha.
It was ha-ha.
When you made jokes about it, when you started speaking for the duck, that was funny.
Are you telling me that my duck story is not podcast viable?
No. Cut it out.
No.
Randy's grading bits now. Wasn't good enough.
No, you didn't fill out all of the squares in the rubric. I'm sorry, but you'll be failing this bit.
So, so C minus best.
Dude, can we not? I mean, I'm getting so many grades right now. It's so upsetting. I missed a test apparently, and I emailed my professor. My professor was like, "Yeah, we can set it up. You can do it tomorrow." And I was like, "Thank God for you, you glorious person."
You make me so anxious.
I make me anxious. This is media for the intellectually impoverished. I'm Tayler.
I'm Randi.
And this is the podcast that
enriches your mediocre lives. Make myself anxious.
I do. This week we're talking about true crime documentaries. Very much a specific.
Yes, very specific.
We were gonna do documentaries at first, just documentaries, which is broader. But then we both realized that we picked true crime documentaries, and we were like, why do documentaries? We can just shoot out this niche real quick. So here we are.
And then next we'll do nature documentaries.
Yeah,
and then
this is it. This is just gonna be documentaries for the rest of the shit.
For now.
Sorry, but I mean, you signed up for it.
I mean, they didn't. I mean, they signed up for media, and we just chose one that they have to listen to now.
How do you grade that bit?
B+.
B+. Yeah, bringing up my average. Solids? What is that? A solid C+?
C+ now.
Yeah. Booyah.
You know it's an A+ or A++ when I have to move away from the mic to laugh. Because I don't want to peek it. I don't want
to peek the microphone. But in the audio recording, all I get is a and then after that, it's nothing. And so people think that you just don't laugh. And so
I laugh so much.
I think it's hilarious to me. I mean, most of the laughs we'll catch. But there are always those times when when I tell a really funny one, and then you're just like, and that's it. And it's like she just didn't laugh at it.
No, I laugh at a lot of them. I think I'm very self-conscious when it comes to my laugh. I don't know I don't know. We won't go into it, but I'm self-conscious about it. So I try to hold it back as much as possible because I always feel like, especially my laugh, because the smallest things, like I was saying earlier, the smallest things will just make me laugh for hours. And you always have like those like group of friends, and then I don't know. I feel like there's this one person who's always like laughing at what everybody says, and so you kind of think like they're weird. Like, why? They calm down.
No one thinks that, especially not when I'm telling the jokes.
Like
if I'm telling jokes and anyone laughs at it, I'm like, yes, new friend. That's it. That's all it takes to get close to me is to laugh at my jokes. I'm not very complicated.
Just show
person.
him the tiniest bit of affection.
Yeah.
Just
honest, anything. Like you could brush against me in the hallway and boom, crush. That's it. That's all it takes.
You shouldn't be giving out this information.
I am not a complicated person. I'm a very simple person. It does not take much to woo me.
Woo. Okay, but true crime. It's interesting that we both chose true crime. What does that say about us?
That we are secretly wanting to kill someone.
I can't with your face.
It was like an right?
Right? So happy. Yeah, that's it. Like you wanting validation. Yeah, that's it, right? We agree?
Yeah, we agree. Both of us feel that way, right?
I don't want to kill anyone.
Sure. I mean, legally, I don't want to kill anyone either.
No. And that's all I have to say about that. True crime.
True crime.
Okay, so I don't have any notes this week.
Someone is ill prepared.
I don't think I am. I've watched a lot of true crime.
Okay, fine. Hit it.
It's bad. So this is I should look up the name.
You don't know the name? It's Abducted in Plain Sight.
Okay. I knew it was abducted in something, but like Abducted in Plain Sight. It's a documentary, a true crime documentary on Netflix. It recently came out, I want to say, because I think I watched it right when it came out. I want to say like a month ago.
Yeah, it's at least within the past 6 months of this recording.
No, within the past 6 months. And so it's about this family. And I think what we're going to do is we're not going to mention exact names.
That's definitely an idea. I mean, obviously we're talking about them, so we think they're good pieces of media.
Yes.
So if you want to watch them, go ahead.
Mm-hmm.
But one thing that, we've noticed as a theme, especially in my piece of media,
yes. Mm-hmm.
is like, sensationalizing the murderers and not the, being there for the victims.
Mm-hmm.
And so we don't want to give these people more limelight than, they wanted, or they don't, I mean, frankly, I don't think they deserve any.
No.
But, without that, where would the piece of media be?
Mm-hmm.
What is the importance of true crime and stuff like that? Well, we can talk about that later.
Yeah.
But yeah, we don't want to, give away names specifically of like killers and victims and stuff, just to be respectful. And as well as we're going to, at least for me, I'm going to try to stray away from, just the plot of the events and stuff, and focus more on the telling of the events and how it was portrayed through the piece of media.
Exactly. Because this is media for the intellectually impoverished.
Yep. You smarties.
You smarties. I love that. So Abducted in Plain Sight, it's about this family who has these 3 daughters, and a neighbor moves in right next door or in their neighborhood and becomes really close to the family, and incidentally really close with one of the daughters. And this weird relationship forms between them where she almost now sees him as a father and her as a daughter, and they go on vacations alone and trips alone together, which is just very strange for somebody who moved in. Even though they've known each other, I think by the time that these things are occurring, like for years at this point, it's still very strange to have that kind of relationship with someone who isn't actually your biological father when you still have that figure in your life. And it obviously it leads down a very unfortunate path where he takes advantage of her. He comes up with this story that she's been abducted and that she's been chosen to save the world, and that to do so she needs to have a child with him.
Yeah, so let's see. Basically, he had abducted her. Mm-hmm. And drugged her, and she was young. She was 12. And fed her this story that she was of an alien race, and that her alien parents were telling her that she had to save the alien race by having a child, and to do that she had to have sex with the picked person or whatever. Mm-hmm. And that one, just so happened to be that guy.
Him, yeah.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing, and so this not only happened once, the family, they eventually find where he's keeping her and like rescue her. He tells her that you can't tell anything to anybody or that it's going to ruin the plan. And eventually she grows up, and I think by the time she's 16?
Yeah, 16.
She then is abducted again or runs away.
When she turns 14, I thought you were talking about something else. When she turns 14, she runs away because I just watched this like 2 days ago, which is why I'm probably... When was the last time you watched it?
When I first told you about it.
Oh, a long time ago.
Yeah.
Loser.
I could not rewatch it. I can't... We'll get into that. Let's finish the plot.
But basically, she has been brainwashed by him into thinking that it's like Stockholm Syndrome.
Yes.
She's like in love with him now.
Yes.
And runs away. And
at 14, I thought she was older than that.
No.
Okay.
No. And I'll tell you why in a second. But she runs away, and it turns out that he basically abducted her again and sent her off to this Catholic school. And they were pretending that she had just been living on the streets and doing who knows what. Mm-hmm. And then by the time she turns 16, she realizes that the aliens aren't real anymore and that she had been abused, because in the initial sort of telling of this tale, he told her that he had fed her this idea that when she turned 16, that was like the end date.
It was 16. Yeah. I don't know why I was thinking, I pushed everything back 2 years. I was thinking it was 18. Okay.
Yeah. So she found out when she was 16 that, you know, all that.
It was
had
a
happened.
lie,
It was
yeah.
a lie and that it wasn't true.
So I love true crime, and I was going on a binge on Netflix watching all of like the recent documentaries that had come out, the Netflix documentaries, and I came to this one, and after watching this one I stopped. I was like, this is too much. I can't. This was bad. I can't believe this family let this happen, and it's not their fault. I don't want to victim blame. Obviously, he was a master manipulator. You have to agree that he was a master manipulator.
Definitely.
Because not only did he manipulate the little girl, but he manipulated her parents as well. He knew that to get to her, I had to get through the parents. And so what he did was he actually, what's the word that I'm looking for? Seduced both of the parents.
Yeah. He seduced the mom, and they had like multiple affairs.
Mm-hmm.
And then seduced the dad. We know of at least one
incident, yeah.
Yeah, but it's possible that there was more.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and I could not watch it anymore. But to speak more of the media,
the telling of the story.
The telling of the story itself, I really liked the way that it didn't cut back and forth. Like, it was very divided in the way that they told the story. It was very much because there were these long periods that the family went without their daughter, where they didn't know what was happening. The audience felt that with them, because they would tell the story of the family for the like months that she was gone or weeks that she was gone, telling what they were doing to try and find her and how like their journey was going, how their fight was going. And after reuniting with her, then we cut back to her story, starting on her first day of being abducted and what occurred after that. Again, then going back to the family for the second time she ran away and was abducted again into the Catholic school, and then her story. I think...
Yeah, I think that it sequences, it is sequenced well, because you're learning of these things as I think the family could have learned about it.
Yeah.
I mean, they didn't find out about all of it until she was 16,
Mm-hmm.
but like in the order that feels natural, because she's gone, she's reunited, then you hear what happened to her.
Yeah.
And then she's gone, she's reunited, you hear what happened to her, and then from then on, it tells like the aftermath of the story.
Yeah.
But by then, it's got about 20 minutes left in its runtime.
It's really interesting. That's so interesting, because during those times when it was just talking about the parents or the family, they also revealed then what the neighbor had been, like the seducing that had occurred then.
Yeah.
And how they had let that happen, or how they had let him get close to her and to them. That's interesting.
Yeah, one of the things that they did, and a lot of true crime does this, but I really liked the take that they had on this, which is reenacting the scenes.
Yes.
Right? But typically when that happens, they'll have like a dark noir style, like grittiness to it. But this one was very like home tape, like filmed. It had that aesthetic. They had put like a film grain on top of it. They had made it look like it was actually being played on like a projector, basically. And you were just watching. It looked like at times, because they intercut that with actual footage of their home videos. And so putting those two together really solidifies this storytelling technique where it feels like, you know, we're listening to them and we see them in the future, like in our time now when it was recorded, versus putting us back and listening to their voices and what they were saying while seeing it in this old style film. And it's a good way to juxtaposition the two. Like, this is us talking about this, right? What has happened and how we feel, like our emotions about what's happened, versus this is the empirical story that we are telling. The
other thing is, you don't actually get to talk to the girl, like, who went through all of this until the very end. Like, she's not telling... She does. Throughout something changes at the end, though. Because she's in one place, like in her house or something, as she's telling the story, and then at the very end, it cuts to where she's like sitting in an office now telling the story.
Yeah, so they just had separate recording places for each point, I think, and that could have been just because of like, recording times.
Oh yeah.
They might not have gotten it all they needed. But it also could have been intentional. I don't remember exactly when the change was, though, so I can't really say whether or not it had an impact on the story itself.
I think it was, again, I haven't.
Maybe, you know what? Maybe you're right. I think it was
I
when
think it
she
was 'cause you were-
realized.
Yeah, when it finally like occurred, like what had happened, and she said that like, oh, it was all a lie, and now she was going to tell her sisters and like start opening up. I think that's when the change occurred. It was then, or it was either when you were talking about when they finished the whole story and there's like 20 minutes left where it talks about her, like how she's now written a book.
Oh, you know what? You're right. That's what it is.
Mm-hmm.
So at the very, very end, you find out that her mother
wrote.
her mother had written a book, and then the two of them were touring around.
Yeah.
And then, sort of events that ensued during that.
Mm-hmm.
And so while she is telling those stories, the two people, the mother and the daughter, they're shot in different locations.
Mm-hmm.
So the daughter is at an office, and then the mother is like at a different table or in a different room.
Yeah.
Because they did a good job of, because when you are filming each person, you want to give each person their own set, so that when they switch, even like immediately, you can tell who you're talking to or who you're seeing. So like the father he was sitting in a lounge chair.
Yeah.
And then the mother was sitting at a dining table, and then the little sister was sitting downstairs in her bedroom or something. Granted, the little sister's like in her 30s, but like she was the younger sister.
Yeah.
And then the victim herself is sitting in, at another place. And it was just, it's very well shot to keep those different pieces like discernible from the moment that they switch. Because it's not just the places, it's also the color of the shots is different.
Because it's very, again, like you were saying, it's very homey. When at the very start, when they're telling the story, when they're telling what occurred, their interviews are very like warm lit. They're in their home, they're very cozy. And then the end where they're on the tour, it's in an office space with like brighter white light for fluorescent lights with hard furniture around them, wooden desks, things like that. It's definitely a shift in the tone.
Yeah.
Which would make sense that it comes at the very end after we've heard like not the conclusion, like, because I feel like the conclusion comes with the court case, which is they were talking about that as they were touring. But with the conclusion of them retelling the story up until until the end of the story. The end of I see. I don't want to say the end of the story because I feel like the end of the story has to. It's a crime, so the crime has to end with some form of justice, with something happening to the criminal.
Yeah.
Whether you say that he's never caught, he is caught, he dies. I like it's a he. It's always a he. That's like the end of the story. I think that way of storytelling is what made it so impactful for me, because the true crime things that I usually watch are like Forensic Files or like Dateline. A lot of Unsolved. There's a new Unsolved series on Netflix. BuzzFeed Unsolved. These things. And so they're very... BuzzFeed Unsolved is a whole nother thing, which I just realized as I was researching for this. I said I don't have any notes, but I did research. I just realized, and it was only after watching your documentary, that when is it okay to start joking about a crime?
That's a good question.
Because that's all that BuzzFeed Unsolved, I'm sure people out there know what I'm talking about. BuzzFeed is a very popular YouTube channel, and they have a specific channel called Unsolved where these two hosts talk about unsolved mysteries in supernatural and in true crime. And they are constantly cracking jokes as they're telling the stories and coming up with their own theories about what happened. And I've enjoyed that, and I think it's really funny. But I can't imagine after watching your documentary someone making a joke about that. And when do you reach that point of like, oh, this can be funny now?
Yeah, that's the thing. Crime, I don't think there are points at which you can take anything lightly. I think that there is a time and a place for nearly every joke, whether or not, other people agree with that, that's up to them. But I think that everything can be joked about tastefully. But, I don't know, like, think about it now. People still don't make 9/11 jokes. It's been 20 years. People are very hesitant to make 9/11 jokes. And I think it's just because, like, it depends on the severity of the crime, as well as, what happened and who was involved. There's a lot of factors that go into that. But frankly, I wouldn't say that anytime close to the incident should you be making jokes about it, you know?
It's all that's another thing just about documentaries in general is you wanted to say something about it, the time of it. It's a story. Is that what you said when I was talking about like the slow revealing of like facts, evidence, and events?
Yeah, it is inherently a story. The point
Everything's a story.
Of putting this to film is to tell a story.
Yes, but you could also like you could just give everyone the facts at the very beginning. Could you not?
But that's not interesting. Is it? You say you get all of the facts, and then you
get to decide. You get to decide. You don't have anybody putting bias in you with all these tones and all these interviews and people crying and these reenactments. You have all the facts. You're like, here, this is what's against this guy. Here's what he did. Here's what these people say. And then that's crime. That's just go to a courthouse.
Yeah, that's just being in the jury.
Yeah. I think that's interesting. I'd 100% watch that.
I mean...
And then you give your vote, and then it's like you think...
And then whether or not he goes to jail is up to the viewers.
No, not to the viewers, but like you can give your vote and you'd be like, he's guilty. And then it's like the court case actually comes up and he was like, he was not guilty. No, I was wrong.
Mail order juries.
Stop. But the case is...
Can you imagine?
I'm saying it's not a jury. It's not because they have to make the decision. You don't get to make the decision. The decision's already been made. You just get to play along.
Something completely unrelated.
No, we've already had so many unrelated guys.
But I gotta say it.
Okay.
I've sat here for 40 minutes and you did not tell me my shirt is fucking inside out.
Is it inside out?
It is inside. It's been inside out since I left the room. And no one told me.
This morning?
I guess.
How do you know it's inside out? Is there a tag? Oh my god! There's no tag on the collar. Oh my gosh! There is a tag! This morning when you went to class? Is it the last? Oh my god. That's great.
No one has told me that my shirt is inside out. I am so embarrassed.
Why? I didn't know. You didn't know. Nobody else knew. You think if somebody knew, they wouldn't tell you? I don't think anyone could tell that your shirt was inside out.
That's a good question. Why am I embarrassed?
Yeah.
Why does that matter?
Nobody knew.
Why do I need to wear my shirt right side out at all?
It's a blue shirt. It's a plain blue shirt. What? We're not missing anything. It's the same on both sides.
So he just honestly, there's less on the other side. Honestly. Shut up. Shut up. You be quiet over there. Father.
That's a new one. There's gonna be the OG listeners who are like Fuzza, and then there's gonna be
the new wave. New aged media, new age smarties.
New age smarties.
But yeah, there's less on the other side because there's not a tag sticking out.
You should not be embarrassed.
I'm not anymore. I thought about it.
Good.
Anyway, so let's move on to my topic.
Okay.
Before we run out of time. Sure, whatever.
I guess.
Yeah, whatever. Not like you enjoyed it or anything. So I'm talking about...
I'm so excited to talk about yours.
I'm talking about Don't Fuck with Cats on Netflix. It is a Netflix exclusive limited series, 3 episodes. So
basically what we're saying is get Netflix.
Get Netflix. We have it. That's the end of that thought. Yeah. Father. This could be the rest of the episode. We have entire control over that.
We do.
Yeah.
We can't.
We can't, but we could.
We could.
And it's the fact that
Just
we could.
know that we could.
Yeah. It's the fact that we could that's important. So yeah, we watched Don't Fuck with Cats. It's basically 3 hours long. I mean, what I did is I rewatched it and binged the entire thing all in one sitting.
I did.
Because it's not much longer than a typical movie.
It's 3 hours.
3 hours, but a movie is an hour and a half. That's just 2 movies. And then there are some movies out there that are 2 hours, 2.5 hours. And there's some that are 3 or 4 hours. If you're watching the Schneider cut of Schneider cut of Justice League, that's 4 hours.
Did you ever watch that?
I did. It was so good, but I don't have time to talk about it.
I did not. I meant to, anyways.
But yeah, so basically the story is, without going into too much detail.
No, we're gonna go into much detail.
Oh no. There is this video that had surfaced online in 2007, 8, around the beginning of YouTube, that had surfaced online of a guy killing 2 cats. And the internet went crazy, and there were these people that were really mad about it. And so this group of people decided to try and track down who did it, hold him accountable and stuff. But the guy that did it was super elusive and like very purposefully misleading them. And eventually, he sends out another video of him killing more cats, and they get more evidence. Time flies by, and then this guy ends up actually murdering a real person, and posting that video online. And in that, this whole story of how people found him. So it's 3 hours long, about almost 3.5, really, because
it's very interesting that they divided it into episodes.
Yeah, and I think that part of it is just because of the tonal shifts that they would have had to have done between each episode. Because think about it. So the first episode is solely about them searching for him online. And then right when it ends is when they find out, I think, that he has killed someone, or he might. It's like they just, no, the episode ends as soon as they find who he is.
Yeah, I think they finally have like a name.
They have
to
a
put,
name to
yeah.
it, and then that's when that first episode ends. And then the second episode, it's like they've got the name, and then you find out at the end that he's gonna kill someone. And then the third episode is mainly about the police and the police tracking him down, and focuses more on that aspect, and a couple of other things as well are sprinkled in there. But that's why I think that they split it into 3, is because each one has a different overarching tone.
Yeah, completely, yeah.
Because the first one is almost comedic. Like, it's very upbeat, like preppy, like quick, new type of cinema. If you didn't see that when you watched it, I think that the beginning...
I was way too terrified of the man killing cats.
Yes, but when I rewatched it, because I'd seen it before, and I went and rewatched it again this week, like 2 days ago, and I picked up on like a lot of at least in the first episode, it was very fast paced and like on top of it. I don't know how to describe it other than that.
I get what you're saying. I kind of see that it was very like fast paced. I don't see where the comedic comes in.
I don't think it was like comedic, but it wasn't framing to
it was very
the tone was
upbeat.
Yeah,
I think
tone
it was
upbeat.
it was what is it called? It's just very high. It's not there's this quickness to it, and it's because this is the very beginning of the investigation. So this is when people had the most like steam for it. This is when we have to catch this guy like right now, and we have to find him because he's killing cats, and this is terrible. And then I think the style, it slows down as the people slowly start to slow down with their investigation. One of the main people who's in this like Facebook group that is trying to track this guy down eventually stops at one point and just kind of like gives up because she's realizing like, are we giving him exactly what he wants, because he wants attention. And so she gives up the investigation, and then something happens, like they get really close to catching him, and she sees it on the news, and then she's like, oh, I gotta get back into this, and then jumps back in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so one of the things that I love about this documentary or this docu-series or whatever, um, is its ability to really paint all of the people as people. A lot of the times in documentaries, they won't have moments where they won't have many moments where it's like showing the humanity of the people. It always feels like they're trying to portray them as like caricatures almost of just like this is the person, like they're painting that person's personality. Does that make sense?
Okay, keep going.
Because in this one, a lot of the stuff that they do is it feels very raw
Okay.
because it opens up and the first thing you see is them holding the slate and clapping the slate. The slate is like the typical, like, you know, when you think of movies, it's that thing that the clapper that you would, I know you know what it is, but it's the thing that they clap down to mark the beginning of a take. So that when they're editing the audio and the video, they have something to sync up. But they start it with that clapper, and the first thing she says is like, are we ready? Are we good to go? Like, she's a person. She's not some film crew. She's not some actress. She's never done this before. This is just someone that is talking, you know, and telling her story. And I always thought that I didn't always, just now, not just now, but like I thought that was an interesting way of portraying these people. If it made, to me, it felt very much like they are trying to tell us that these are just people, because they are. These were just people that were doing this. Every time they introduced a person in the Facebook group, I just realized that. Every time they introduced a person in the Facebook group, they started with that very hard cut into them slating and the person being like sitting there for a second while it was getting ready. Because these are just people that were there that just saw something and stepped up.
Yeah.
And I thought that was really interesting.
I agree with you. I think it's very interesting. I don't think it's something that's like new. I feel like I've seen a lot of other documentaries or docuseries kind of things do that as well.
To be fair, I haven't watched as many documentaries as you,
okay.
but I feel like it was very intentional.
No, that's definitely a tactic to try and make it feel more personal and like they're actually people and they didn't know what they were doing at the time. They didn't know what they were doing was going to actually do any good. It really paints them in a realistic light. Also, just the fact that they rely so heavily on like Facebook, like I don't know, especially for us in today's age, like where social media is such a big thing in our lives. That's just another. I know that's the medium that they use to try and solve the case, but also that is just also feels really realistic because I don't know how to say it. It's a recent case and it's very relatable to us in that way. So I think we can relate in talking in group chats on different social medias and things like
and
that.
just like having a group.
And also the fact that they would like cut to like an actual like Facebook webpage and then they would.
That's one thing that I would mention is they recreated what the internet would look like.
Yeah. Yeah.
So like every time a person showed up, and I watched this with Josh, my roommate, and he mentioned that every time like a person would be introduced that was in the Facebook group, you would see them log into Facebook and then like them typing in a password. And for each person, like the passwords were different lengths depending on the personalities of that person.
Yeah, I saw that too. I thought that was really cool. The guy who we see throughout like the entire thing, he has a really long password. He's really
and you can tell
paranoid.
that from his personality, he would be the type of person, because they have a woman and a man that basically were spearheading the investigation on Facebook, and or at least it's portrayed that way.
Yeah.
And the woman has a reasonable password length, but the guy has like a ridiculously long password length. And the guy is very uptight. He's very serious. Yeah. He's very
I think it was at the very end when she was like, I did not expect this to be this long. I expected to do this for like 2 weeks, not 18 months. And he was like, I was going to do this until it was done. Like, I don't know what you're talking about. Like, she was trying to relate to him and he completely shot her down.
Oh, yeah. He was not super personable. But, you know, that's just him. And they portrayed him in a way that he was. Yeah. Which was cool. Another thing with the B-roll is like they had some of the prettiest B-roll I have ever seen on a documentary, at least short of a nature documentary. it was just some of the most like well done cinematic shots I've ever. There was a lot of, and I love focus racks. I love focus racks.
They're nice.
They're so good. But there was a lot of focus racking. There was a lot of really, really pretty drone shots and very intentional setups. So they had a couple spots where they would go from Google Maps to the exact shot that it would look like in real life with a drone. So they lined it up so that it looked almost perfect.
Wow,
like
I did not even notice that.
Yeah, it almost looked perfectly in sync with the Google Maps thing, and then they switched it to the real place. That was such a good transition, and they did it like 2 or 3 times in the whole series, and I was like, every time they did it, it blew my mind. I was like, the logistics of that, you got to think about that. Someone's got to be sitting there with Google Maps open, finding the perfect spot, and then someone else is flying a drone in probably, there was one that looked stormy, so like probably wind and inclement weather, and they're trying to steer and get this perfect position that looks close enough to the Google Maps to show. That's crazy.
That's awesome. No,
That's awesome.
It is. And I can't believe I didn't notice that. I was too focused on the story.
Yeah, I think that it was told very well.
It was.
There's a lot of like, it's very story driven and very well story driven. They, like I said, they do recreations of the events. And this one, they kind of do that, but not as much. Because
I was going to say, I don't think there was really any recreations because they had a lot of actual video.
That's what I was going to say.
To show.
They opted for showing the actual videos that the culprit put up on the internet.
I don't think there was any reenactment.
The only things that I saw were moments where like people were laying in bed. The Facebook group people were laying in bed or like on their phone. You would have a shot of them on their phone or something.
Yeah.
And
none of the criminal.
None of the criminal. No, because of the criminal,
he posted everything.
Yeah, there was physical footage of it. And they stuck to that theme rather than recreate, because they could have recreated moments. There were many points during the story when they could have recreated moments, but they opted for every time that we see the culprit's face, we see it through a camera lens within a camera lens. That makes sense. And
you do.
Yeah, and that's perpetuating this theme of like he wanted to be online, he wanted to be sensationalized.
He wanted to be seen. He wanted attention. He wanted to be badly.
Yeah, he wanted to be the star. You know, and that they portrayed that really, really well in a very interesting way. You know, and that's another decision. That's an obvious decision that they had to have made. You know, I thought that was brilliant.
It just all goes back to what you had originally said about just making it like really digging into each of their personalities, because I didn't realize that, but that definitely shows like the narcissist that he was, that you always see him like, even when they're like telling about his like backstory and stuff, like you see him in YouTube videos. Like, oh my God.
I mean, there's a whole lot more. Like I said, we don't want to tell his story. That's not our job. That's not what we want to do. Because we don't want to give him any more limelight. But at the same time, like, we're also saying go watch the media, you know, which is, I think it's weird for us to say.
It's difficult.
It's a strange situation, but we're analyzing this piece of media because it does a good job of presenting these points. And one of the points they specifically present at the back half is, were we complicit in his crimes by sensationalizing it?
By giving him attention, by showing him that there was a chase. This man was also very obsessed with movies, and he wanted to be the star of his movie. He replicated a bunch of different scenes from different things, and the fact that these people were following him and giving him this attention, trying to solve his mystery, is part of like what they think led him down to get worse and worse with his crimes. And so when I had watched it, I talked to Tayler and I said, I don't know if we should even talk about this because we have a platform now. It'd be different if we were talking to just each other about it, but to then spread it with more people, it's again like sensationalizing it. It's again giving him that kind of attention.
And then we decided that it's not giving him the attention as much as it is giving the media the attention.
That's what we're trying to focus
That's,
on.
yeah, and that's what we're attempting to do. But, in that we do want to give context.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why we have to tell some of the story.
The other thing that I wanted to say just about the way that it's shot, it's all, I said this before, but all documentaries, they're so tonal, I think is the word. They do such a great job of making you feel a certain way, and they do that especially with this, with making it feel so personal. And also the music has such a heavy impact. I feel like I don't have specific examples, but I remember sitting there thinking, like, they go from such like fast, upbeat, like really quick, like snare drum as they're like getting to evidence, more and more evidence, more and more events, and then suddenly there's like a huge long silence, and like every time that happened, my heart like stopped.
Yeah, so like I was saying, when they would introduce the Facebook group people, there's two specific moments that I can think of that happened like that. And one of them is when they introduced the man that was spearheading the Facebook group. They have a hard, and I'm talking hard cut from something else that was going on. I don't remember the specifics, but I just remember thinking like that was such a hard cut. Like it just brought me out for a moment, and that was purposeful.
Yeah.
Again, they wanted to bring us out of the media to remind us that these are real people, and that it's not just some story, that these were people.
Yeah,
and that
it's not a movie, it's not fiction. Don't get sucked in. Like, but that's so interesting. So like I'm trying to figure out, like, if you wanted to make a documentary, you have to but it's with everything that we constantly say, like, you have to be so precise and purposeful with everything that you do. But specifically with a documentary, especially true crime, you have to walk that line of like, I want to tell this story in such an interesting way and pull these people in, but I can't be fake about it. I have to remind them at some point that this is real. And I feel like not all documentaries do that. There's a lot that really, really like hype it up and sensationalize it and really make it feel like it's this extraordinary, big exploit. Yeah. But I think, Don't Fuck with Cats was really like towing that line.
Yeah. And I think they towed it really well. There are a couple of spots that are like really emotional and like difficult to watch. They have a bit where the woman spearheading the Facebook group watches.
No, I know what you were gonna talk.
Yeah.
Oh, that was so hard.
She watches the video of the cats being killed, and then has, like, I'm guessing the directors told her to describe it in real time, and they got her reaction because she'd never seen the whole thing before. And like watching her having to go through this moment of seeing this for the real time, for the first time, and seeing her reactions in real time, and then the way that she's reacting to it, it's just such a heart-wrenching moment. Because you see the raw emotion on her face. And then they have another spot in the third episode when a police chief is talking about watching a video of his murder, and she's straight-faced the whole time, and she's a seasoned detective, but she has this moment where she tells us that she'd never seen she always shows up after the killings and pieces it together. She's never seen the killings, and they had her go in and watch, because it's evidence. She has to watch it, so they have her go in and watch the video of the culprit killing the victim. And she has this very, very just like, she's straight face. She's telling, and she's just like, I can't talk about this anymore. And then she just breaks down.
Yeah.
And then during those shots, I believe, at least in the first one I talked about, they switched to handheld to get up close and personal.
I could not.
And then I believe they did that again in the second one, but I am not sure because I was very sucked in at that moment.
Those are very powerful sequences.
Yeah, those two parts in particular, because like there's no music. It is them.
It is just them in that video, and
it's tough to watch.
I was so worried that they were going to like how much of those videos that they were going to show us, because I did not want to be subjected to that. Yeah,
I think just closing thoughts on my piece. It's just one thing that they did well, that a couple that I think is important to do, is they talked about the victim. Like, for a while it was just about the victim, and they gave this moment where they interviewed the best friend of the victim, and he had this moment where he was like, one thing that's sad is everyone's talking about the culprit, but no one's talking about his friend.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's because it was so sensationalized and how unfair that is. And it really is unfair, you know? So I think that it is important in true crime to like tell the victim's story, because who will, you know? And that's gotta be sort of your point here. Think about it. Like,
that whole documentary was about the criminal.
Yeah. And it's just like, you know, it's important to respect the fact that this story does not exist without the cost of the victim, whether it be like a crime or a murder or something of those. Like, the victim had to go through that, and people don't always tell that story because that's not what sells. It's the criminal that sells.
Briefly, because I know we're going, but one of the things that I want to say just quickly, I want to hear your thoughts on it because I don't know. Again, documentaries are one-sided, and this side, you talked about how in the last episode they talked about it was mainly focused on the police finding him. It was very interesting because I took the whole documentary as it being against the police, that like they weren't taking this Facebook group seriously in the evidence that they were collecting and that they were finding. They were thinking, oh, these are just like dumb people who don't know what they're doing, and we're the professionals, and like we don't see anything wrong, so we don't have anything to do, or we're not gonna do anything. It very much played them in that light, and you can tell me if you agree with that. I definitely think that's how it was played.
Yeah, there's that to a point, and there's definitely like moments when you see, and it's such an interesting juxtaposition because you hear the people in an earlier episode, maybe the Facebook people finding out about things or proposing these ideas that the police woman that we talk to tells us, and they obviously they don't interconnect. They're not telling them, like, they were probably filming these interviews at the same exact time, but just due to scheduling, you know, they probably sent a team out here, team out there to do all the interviewing because they had to go across the world to get this done. But it's like the police are telling us these things that we found out about from
like months ago, from these other people.
These other people I found out months ago, and it's just like, and their plight to catch this person went unaccounted for. I think that's not the right word. It just went unnoticed or was brushed off.
Yeah.
Because they didn't have credibility.
Yeah.
But they had the information, and it's this frustrating turn of events, and that's, you know, part of the story. But, you know, I don't want to give away too much because I do think that it is worth the watch. There's some things that we haven't even touched on that are so interesting. But we're running out of time here.
I know. Just the other thing, like, I also think that's interesting because in I could name a whole bunch of documentaries where that occurs, where the police and the like citizens are pitting themselves against one another and saying that, like, oh, the police do nothing, oh, the citizens can't do anything. But there's a couple where the police and the citizens come together really well, and I think
yeah. All right, let's move on to some recommendations.
Night Stalker on Facebook, on Netflix.
On Facebook.
On Netflix.
Is that a documentary?
Yep, it's a docuseries.
Sick.
It's about the Night Stalker this took place in the early 90s, I want to say, took place in Los Angeles. This serial killer who serial killers, I also want to talk about serial killers. We ran out of time. Usually have an MO, and so usually they'll go after, like, well, Ted Bundy went after women with brown hair, like college students and all of these kinds of things. He had no MO. No one was safe from him. And how I told you, anyways. And so I think this does a really good job. Does a really good job of bringing you into the story and rooting for the police and for the citizens in this movie, because this or in this documentary, because this is one of the documentaries where those two go hand in hand. They're not at odds with one another. The police are doing the best they can. Citizens are trying their best to also track down this guy. And I won't spoil it, but they come together amazingly at the end. It's very, again, it'll pull at your heartstrings, and it sucks you in, and you just can't stop watching it. Like, I believe there's 5 episodes, and I watched them all in one night. It's incredible. You don't have one? I can give like 10 more.
Hold up. Give me a minute, because I know I've seen a bunch more, but it's just, oh, shoot.
The McLeans?
Oh, dude. Hold up. I actually got one now. Hold up. I found it.
What is it?
I found it. I'm so sorry that took me so long. It is called The Family I Had. It is the story of Paris Bennett, who kills his little sister, and it's the story of the mother and how the mother copes with that. It is brilliant. It is only 80 minutes long. It's shot really, really well. And I just remember seeing it and being like, wow, that is one of the best documentaries I've ever seen about that. But that is all for this week. Thanks for joining us on that intellectual journey, my smarties.
Father.
Catch you guys in the next one.
Bye.
Media for the Intellectually Impoverished is produced by Trey Taylor Smith and Miranda Randy Zapes.
Follow us on Instagram and Twitter at MFTII Podcast, or email us at mftiipodcast@gmail.com.
That's MFT, 2 Eyes, Podcast. Thanks for listening.